The exterior motion alert triggered on 3 floors at once. That alone was unusual. The system is configured to highlight human-shaped movement within 20 feet of the building's glass line. And on a normal Tuesday overnight, the most I'll see is a late worker silhouetted in a window while they pack up at their desk. But at 1:47 a.m., the perimeter camera on the east facade flagged simultaneous motion on floors 4, 8, and 11. I clicked into the feed and expanded it. The same man was standing at a window on each floor. Same build, same custodial uniform. Same posture, slightly forward, one hand resting against the glass, face angled toward the street below. The timestamps on all 3 motion boxes were identical, 01:47:12, and the man was Ruben Alvarez, the overnight custodial supervisor. I'd watched him badge into the building at 10 and begin his rounds at 10:30. His access log placed him on floor 8, where he'd been checking windows for condensation along the east-facing offices. His swipe history confirmed it. Internal cameras on floor 8 showed him standing at the 3rd window bay from the south stairwell, palm flat against the glass, exactly matching the posture in the exterior feed. But internal cameras on floors 4 and 11 showed empty offices. No motion, no occupants, nothing. I keyed the radio. "Ruben, it's Evan in the control room, you on 8. Yeah, east side checking the seals. We had condensation complaints again. Do me a favor, stand still for a second." I'm standing still. I watched the internal feed on floor 8. Ruben was motionless, hand at his side now, looking at his radio. I looked at the exterior feed. The figures on floors 4 and 11 turned toward the camera. Ruben didn't move. He was facing the interior of the building, talking to me on the radio, visible on 2 separate internal cameras. But in the glass on floors 4 and 11, 2 copies of him pivoted in unison and looked directly at the perimeter lens. Their movement was smooth, deliberate, synchronized with each other but independent of the man they resembled. The figure on floor 4 lowered its hand from the glass. The figure on floor 11 kept its palm pressed flat. Neither matched what Ruben was doing. I've worked overnight security in this building for 9 years. I started on floor patrol and moved into the control room after my 3rd year. I know what camera artifacts look like. I know about IR reflections, neighboring building mirrors, timestamp drift, and recording loops. What I was looking at didn't match any of them, and I knew that within the first 10 seconds because the copies were doing things the original was not doing. "Ruben, stay on 8 for now. I need to check something." "Everything okay?" "Probably, just stay put." I pulled up the building directory. Priya Shah was on call for overnight facilities. She's the electrician who handles emergency lighting, circuit isolation, and camera system power. I called her direct line. "Priya, it's Evan. I need you in the control room." "What's going on?" "Something on the exterior cameras I can't explain from here. How fast can you get down?" "Give me 4 minutes." While I waited, I ran through every rational explanation I could reach from my chair. The east facade is a curtain wall, floor-to-ceiling reflective glass panels in a repeated vertical stack. At night, when the interior lights are on and the exterior is dark, those windows become mirrors from the outside. Anything illuminated inside the office will appear to an exterior camera as a figure standing at the glass. If Ruben was on floor 8 and a neighboring building's window happened to bounce his lit image into the panes on 4 and 11, you might get a reflection artifact. I checked. The nearest building to the east is a parking structure. No glass, no reflective surface facing us. The next occupied building is 2 blocks away. Its angle to our facade is nearly perpendicular. There was no optical path that could carry Rubin's image from floor 8 to floors 4 and 11 on our own exterior. Priya arrived and I showed her the feeds without telling her what to look for. She studied them for about 15 seconds. That's Rubin. Yes. On 3 floors. Yes. His access log shows floor 8 only. Correct. Internal cameras confirm he's physically on 8. I just spoke to him on the radio. She leaned closer to the monitors. These are 3 separate camera feeds. 3 separate exterior perimeter cameras. Independent power, independent recording, independent motion detection. They don't share a processor. And the timestamps are synced, down to the frame. She straightened up. Can you get Rubin to do something specific? Something we can watch for on all 3? I radioed Rubin. Hey, I need you to raise your right hand above your head and hold it there for 5 seconds. Then bring it back down. You're being weird tonight, Evan. Humor me. On the internal floor 8 camera, Rubin raised his right hand. He held it. He brought it down. On the exterior feed, the floor 8 image matched, but approximately 8 seconds behind. He raised his hand 8 seconds after the real Rubin had. The figures on floors 4 and 11 did the same. All 3 copies raised their right hands, held them and lowered them, 8 seconds after Rubin had completed the motion. They're delayed, Priya said. 8 seconds. That rules out a live feed mirror or a recording loop. A mirror would be instantaneous. A loop would repeat a captured sequence, not respond to a new command. I know. Then what are they responding to? I didn't have an answer. I asked Rubin to repeat the test. Raise both hands this time, hold for 3 seconds, lower them. He did. The copies followed. The delay was 4 seconds. Priya noticed it before I said anything. That was faster. 4 seconds this time. Run it again. I asked Rubin to turn in a full circle. He did slowly on the floor 8 internal feed. The copies turned. The delay was under 2 seconds. Priya sat down in the chair next to mine. Neither of us said anything for a moment. On the exterior feed, 3 Rubins stood in 3 windows on 3 different floors, and the gap between the original and the copies was shrinking with every test. I want to check the glass, she said. Can you send me the specific window bays on 4 and 11? I gave her the locations. She took an elevator to floor 4, and I watched her on internal cameras as she walked into the east-facing office suite. The lights were on standard overnight lighting, about 40% of the ceiling fixtures active. The office was empty. Desks, chairs, monitors in sleep mode, a whiteboard with project notes along one wall. Priya walked to the window bay the exterior camera had flagged. Evan, I'm at the window. I see you on interior. What do you see from inside? Street, parking structure across the way. My own reflection. Normal glass. On the exterior feed, floor 4 still showed Rubin standing at the same window, but now Priya was also visible behind him on the internal camera, approaching the glass from the office side. She was looking through the window at the street. The exterior camera was looking at the window from the street. They should have been seeing each other's perspective. Instead, the exterior camera showed Rubin, and the interior camera showed Priya. As though the glass had 2 different interiors, depending on which side you observed from. Priya, put your hand on the glass, right where the figure's hand is on the exterior feed. She reached out and pressed her palm flat against the window. It's cold, significantly colder than the surrounding glass, like someone's been holding an ice pack against it from the outside. There's no one outside, we're on the 4th floor. I know that, Evan. She pulled her hand away and looked at it, then she looked at the glass. There's a handprint here, on the inside of the glass. Not mine, it was here before I touched it. It's at about 5'10", 5'11", Ruben's height. Ruben hasn't been on 4 tonight. I'm aware. The handprint was visible on the interior camera if I zoomed in, a faint fog-like impression on the glass, the kind a warm palm leaves on a cold window. But it was on the inside surface of a window that no one had touched. I'm going up to 11, Priya said. Check the same window bay. She took the stairs to floor 11, same procedure. She walked into the east-facing suite. Same overnight lighting, same empty desks, same view. She found the flagged window. Same thing, cold patch on the glass, handprint on the inside, same height. Does it look like the same hand? She paused. It looks like the same hand. 2 floors, 2 matching cold handprints at the same height, on windows no one had approached from the inside. I looked at the exterior feed. The figure on floor 11 was still there, still standing, still wearing Ruben's uniform. And the figure on floor 4, where Priya was no longer standing, had taken a step closer to the glass. I watched it happen in real time on the perimeter camera. The copy on floor 4 leaned forward, as though pressing its face closer to the window surface, and its hand came up again and settled flat against the pane. On the internal floor 4 camera, the office was empty. No motion, no presence, no change. But on the exterior feed, Ruben's copy was now touching the window from the inside, and the internal camera couldn't see it. Priya, I need you to try something on 11. Turn off the overhead lights in the office. All of them. Everything. Kill the circuit if you have to. I heard her open a breaker panel in the hallway. The interior camera on floor 11 went dark, not the camera itself, but the image, because there was no longer any light for it to capture. The office was black. On the exterior feed, floor 11's copy vanished. The window became a dark pane reflecting the street, the way every other unlit window on the building looked. Lights are off on 11, Priya confirmed. The reflection is gone. Bring them back up. She reset the breaker. The office lights returned. The interior camera showed the empty room, desks and chairs exactly as before. On the exterior feed, the figure reappeared, but it was closer to the glass than before. Its hand was already on the window. Its face was nearly pressed against the surface. And it was not looking at the street. It was looking toward the interior of the office, toward the hallway where Priya had just been standing. Priya, get out of that suite. Now. What's wrong? The copy came back when the lights came on. It's oriented toward the hallway. It's facing inward. She didn't argue. I watched her exit the suite on the interior camera and move into the central corridor. The moment she was out of the office, the copy in the window returned to its original posture, facing the street, hand flat, standing upright. Kill the lights again and leave them off, I said. She cut the floor 11 breaker a second time. The copy vanished. What about floor 4? She asked. Leave it for now, come back down here. While Priya returned to the control room, I radioed Ruben. Ruben, I need you to step away from the windows on 8. Move into the interior corridor. Don't stand near any east-facing glass. Evan, what's happening? I'm not sure yet, just stay away from the windows. He moved. On the internal floor 8 camera, I watched him walk into the central hallway and stop near the elevator bank. No windows, no glass. On the exterior feed, the floor 8 copy remained at the window. It didn't follow him. It stayed exactly where Ruben had been standing when the anomaly began. It stayed, and it kept his posture, and it kept his height, and it kept the precise angle of his hand on the glass, as though the window had memorized him. Priya came back into the control room and pulled a second chair up beside me. I showed her the timeline, every test, every result, the delay shrinking, the copies reorienting, the lights-off disappearance. She looked at it the way she looks at a wiring diagram that has a fault she can trace but not yet explain. The reflections depend on interior illumination, she said. No light, no copy, but they don't respond to the actual person's current position. They retain his image from the last time he was near the glass. And they're getting faster. Getting faster at what exactly? Matching him. The first test had an 8-second delay. The second was 4. The third was under 2. Every time we ask him to move, the copies match sooner. What happens when the delay hits 0? I'd been thinking about that since the second test. I don't know. But I want to try something before we get there. Can you get Ruben near a mirror? Why? Because a mirror should show him his own reflection in real time. If the delay is affecting something about how he's reflected, it might show there too. Priya radioed Ruben and asked him to step into the 8th floor fitness room. It was located inside the building's central core, with no windows and a wall-length exercise mirror. A security camera above the entrance covered the room. Ruben walked in and stood facing the mirror. Evan, I'm in the fitness room. What am I looking for? Just stand there and watch yourself for a minute. Tell me if anything looks wrong. He stood. 10 seconds, 20. I look like a guy who's tired of doing window checks, he said. Nothing weird. Raise your right hand. He raised it. In the camera feed, I could see his reflection in the mirror, small, distant, but visible. His reflection raised its hand at the same time. Now lower it. He lowered it. The reflection held its hand up for approximately half a second longer. It was barely perceptible on the camera. I rewound the feed and watched it frame by frame. Ruben's hand came down at frame 814. The reflection's hand came down at frame 827. At 30 frames per second, that was a delay of just under half a second. A mirror cannot delay a reflection. A mirror is geometry and light. There is no processing, no signal path, no mechanism by which a reflection can lag behind the object it's reflecting. It is physically impossible. Ruben, do it again, slower this time. He raised his hand slowly. The reflection matched, but not quite. The reflection began its motion a fraction of a second after Ruben initiated his, like a person imitating someone rather than a surface returning light. One more time, fast. Drop your hand as fast as you can. He did. The reflection lagged by nearly a full second. Ruben saw it. I could tell from the way he stepped back from the mirror. Evan. His voice was different now, quieter. My reflection was late. I know. Step away from the mirror. Get out of the room. He left. In the hallway under the fluorescent ceiling lights, I watched him on the internal camera. And for 2 frames, frames 1204 and 1205, he wasn't there. The camera showed the hallway. The floor, the walls, the ceiling fixtures, but no Ruben. Then he was back in frame 1206, mid-stride, exactly where he should have been. 2 frames. 1/15 of a second. A gap so small you'd never catch it watching in real time. But I was watching frame by frame now, and the gap was there. I checked the exterior feed. All 3 copies, floors 4, 8, and 11, remained perfectly stable. No dropped frames. No gaps. The copies had not flickered once since they first appeared. The copies were becoming more consistent than the original. Priya, I said, how many floors have east-facing lights on right now? She pulled up the lighting board. Floors 2 through 12. Floor 13 is dark, vacant tenant. Floor 14 has partial lighting in the mechanical penthouse, but those are interior rooms with no east-facing glass. How many of those floors are showing copies on the exterior camera? I scanned the feeds. Floors 4 and 8 still held their original copies. Floor 11 had one again, but it was no longer at the window Priya had blacked out. It had shifted several bays south, into a conference room pane that remained faintly illuminated. Floor 6 had one too, and floor 9. Both showed Reuben standing at the glass in the same posture, hand flat, facing the street custodial uniform. 5 copies. Reuben had never touched those windows. The first 3 panes had retained him after direct contact. These new ones were different. His image was no longer staying where he had left it. It was spreading through the illuminated glass along the east facade. Reuben was in the interior hallway on floor 8, nowhere near any window, and 5 floors were displaying him in the glass. "We need to start shutting down lights," I said. "Every east-facing floor that doesn't have a late worker." Priya pulled up the tenant's schedule. Floors 3, 5, and 10 have active late-stay badges. The rest should be empty. Kill everything else on the east side. Leave the occupied floors for now. She began working the lighting board. Floor 2 went dark. The copy that had started forming there, faint, not yet fully defined, disappeared. Floor 6 went dark. Copy gone. Floor 7, which had been developing a faint shape, went dark. Gone. Floor 9 went dark. The copy remained for approximately 3 seconds after the lights cut. Then it faded. "They're lingering," Priya said. Floor 9 took longer to clear. "They're getting stronger." That left floors 4, 8, and 11 with confirmed copies. Floors 3, 5, and 10 were lit but occupied by real employees, and no copies had appeared in their windows. The copies seemed to need Reuben specifically. His image, his shape, the imprint he'd left on the glass during his condensation rounds. The first 3 copies had begun where Reuben touched the glass. After that, the building no longer needed his hand on every pane. It only needed another illuminated window. "Reuben, which floors did you check windows on tonight?" He answered from the floor 8 hallway. "Started on 4, went to 8, then 11. The condensation complaints came from tenants on those floors. The same 3 floors as the original copies. He'd touched the glass on all 3, palm flat, checking seals. The contact had started something. And once it started, it moved on its own, pane to pane, floor to floor, anywhere the glass was lit from inside. "Priya, can you kill floor 4? "Doing it now." Floor 4 went dark on the lighting board. The interior camera lost its image. On the exterior feed, the floor 4 copy lingered for 6 seconds before fading. 6 seconds, longer than floor 9. "Floor 8, I asked. "That's where Reuben is." "He's in the interior hallway, no windows. The hallway fixtures share a circuit with the east offices. If I kill the circuit, he's in the dark." "Do it." "Reuben, lights are going off on 8, don't move." Priya cut the circuit. The floor 8 interior went black. On the exterior feed, the floor 8 copy held for 9 seconds. 9 seconds. And as it faded, it didn't simply disappear. It turned. Slowly, in the last 3 seconds before the image dissolved, the copy turned from the window and faced the interior of the building, toward the hallway where Reuben was standing in the dark. Then it was gone. "Bring 8 back up," I said. Priya restored the circuit. The hallway cameras came back online. Reuben was standing where I'd left him, arms at his sides, visible and present. On the exterior feed, floor 8's window showed an empty office. No copy. The blackout had cleared it. 1 floor left, floor 11. "Priya, what's the lighting situation on 11? She checked her board. "Standard overnight circuit. I already killed it earlier during the first test. It's been dark since." "Then why is the copy still there?" We both looked at the exterior feed. Floor 11. The copy of Reuben was still standing in the window, hand flat against the glass, facing the street, clearly visible, on a floor with no lights. Priya pulled up the circuit diagram for floor 11. The main overhead circuit is off. But there's a conference room on the east side, room 1108, with an independent emergency lighting circuit, battery-backed. It runs on a separate panel from the tenant lighting. Is it on? It's always on. It's emergency rated. I can't kill it from the board. Can you kill it from the panel on 11? I can, but I'd need to physically access the emergency breaker in the room, and the conference room has floor-to-ceiling east-facing glass, with a blind, motorized, controlled from the room's wall panel. Can you close it remotely? No, it's a local switch. Floor 11, room 1108, an emergency-lit conference room with a wall of east-facing glass and a motorized blind that could only be closed from inside the room, the last illuminated window on the east facade. And behind that glass, a copy of Reuben that had survived 2 blackouts and was now the only remaining figure in the building's reflection. I radioed Reuben. "How are you feeling?" "Honestly, strange, like I'm standing slightly to the left of where I think I am. It's hard to describe. Is anything moving that you're not telling it to move?" A pause. My right hand has been twitching, just the fingers, like when you've had too much coffee, but I haven't had any coffee. "How long?" "Few minutes. Maybe since the lights went off on this floor." I looked at the exterior feed. On floor 11, the copy's right hand was pressed flat against the glass, fingers extended, perfectly still. "Reuben, I want you to move to the center stairwell, the service stairs. No windows, no glass, no reflective surfaces. Stay there." "Evan, tell me what's happening." I owed him that. He'd trained me when I started this job. He'd been the one walking floors while I learned the camera system. He'd been the one who acted during the medical emergency on floor 6 3 years ago, a late-stay employee who collapsed at his desk with a cardiac event. I'd seen it on camera. I'd seen the man fall. And I'd sat in this chair for 11 seconds, waiting for a better angle, waiting for confirmation that what I was seeing was real, before I called it in. Reuben was already running. He was in the room performing CPR before I'd picked up the phone. The man survived because Reuben didn't wait for a second camera angle. I moved into control room work permanently after that. I told myself it was a better fit, that I was more useful behind the screens, coordinating, monitoring, providing the information that people on the floors needed. But the truth was simpler than that. I was afraid of what happened when the screen couldn't tell me what to do next. "The exterior cameras are showing your reflection on floor 11, I said. "On a window you touched tonight. The reflection is copying your movements, but it's not doing it the way a real reflection does. It's on a delay, and the delay is getting shorter. And your actual reflection in mirrors, on cameras, is starting to lag. The building is holding your image in the glass and it's getting better at it. I think the copies are becoming more stable than you are." The radio was quiet for several seconds. "The stairwell," he said. "Center stairwell. No windows. No windows. I'm moving." I watched him go. Internal cameras tracked him from the floor 8 hallway to the service stairwell door. He swiped through. The stairwell had no cameras. It was a concrete column running through the building's core, lit by caged overhead bulbs, no glass anywhere. The moment he entered, he was off my screens. "I'm in the stairwell," he said. "Feels better in here." The twitching stopped. On the exterior feed, the floor 11 copy shifted. It turned away from the street and faced inward. Then its head angled downward as though it were looking through the floor, toward the stairwell. "Priya, I need to get up to 11 and cover that window." She looked at me. "You're going to leave the control room during an active incident. The control room can't fix this. The screens can't fix this. There's one active copy left, and it's behind glass I can't darken from here. Someone has to physically cover that window. I can go. You need to stay on the lighting board. If any other floor starts developing copies, you have to be able to kill it immediately. And if something happens to me on 11, you need to be the one watching the cameras. She didn't argue. She knew I was right for the same reason I knew, because the board was the last line of defense, and she was the only one who could operate it in real time. I pulled an oversized opaque fire-retardant blackout sheet from the emergency equipment cabinet outside the control room. It was large enough to cover a full glass panel. I took 4 heavy spring clamps and a roll of foil-backed utility tape with it. The sheet was not designed for windows. It was simply the only material in the building that could block the pane completely. I clipped my radio to my belt. I took my flashlight but did not turn it on. I didn't want to create any new illuminated surfaces if I could avoid it. The elevator would have been faster, but elevators have polished stainless steel doors and mirrored ceiling panels. I took the center stairwell. Reuben was sitting on the landing between floors 5 and 6. He looked up when he heard my footsteps. "You're going to the conference room," he said. It wasn't a question. Stay here. No glass, no reflective surfaces. Keep the radio on. Evan. He held up his right hand. The fingers were steady. "It stopped when I came in here. Whatever's happening, it can't reach this stairwell. That's why you're staying in it." I climbed to floor 11. The stairwell door opened onto the central corridor. Priya had killed the main lighting circuit, so the hallway was dark. Only the red glow of the exit signs marked the intersections. I kept my flashlight off and walked by the exit sign light toward the east wing. The conference room was at the end of the corridor. Room 1108. Through the glass panel beside the door, I could see the emergency lighting inside, a flat white wash from 2 battery-backed ceiling fixtures. Not bright, but enough. Enough to illuminate the room. Enough to illuminate the glass. I opened the door. The conference room was ordinary. A long table with 12 chairs. A presentation screen on the west wall. A credenza with a coffee service. And the entire east wall was glass, 6 full-height panes overlooking the street below. The motorized blinds were fully closed across 5 of the 6 panes. The blind on the final pane had dropped less than a foot from the ceiling before the motor jammed, leaving almost the entire window exposed. No one had repaired it because the conference room was not scheduled for overnight use. Through the uncovered glass, the city was dark and quiet. Street lights, the parking structure, a distant traffic signal changing from green to red, and Reuben was standing in the glass, not outside, not behind me, in the glass. His reflection occupied the exposed pane the way your own reflection occupies a window when you stand in front of it at night, except I was the one standing in front of it, and the reflection was not mine. It was Reuben, his uniform, his height, his posture. His hand pressed flat against the glass from the inside, his face calm, expressionless, looking out at the street. As I watched, the copy raised its right hand. I keyed the radio. "Reuben, don't move. Tell me what your right hand is doing." His voice came back immediately. "It's moving. I'm not doing it. My right hand just came up on its own. Evan, I can't stop it." The copy in the glass held its hand at shoulder height, fingers extended. It held the posture. Reuben's voice came through the radio with a strain in it I'd never heard before. "It's not letting go. My hand is up and it won't come down." I stepped closer to the window. In my peripheral vision, I caught movement in the closed panes behind the other blinds, through the narrow gaps where the fabric didn't quite meet the frame. Shapes, the same shape. Reuben repeated, standing behind each blind. Not fully visible, just edges, a shoulder, a pressed hand, a jawline. The copies were forming behind the covered glass, too, weaker, barely there but present. I looked at the exposed pane. The jammed blind covered barely a strip at the top, leaving nearly the full height of the window open. I unfolded the blackout sheet. The copy turned its head and looked at me. Not at the street, not at the room, at me. Its eyes, Rubens' eyes, reproduced in glass and light with perfect fidelity, tracked my movement as I spread the sheet. On the surface of the window between me and the copy, I saw my own reflection for just a moment. Then it was gone, replaced. The glass showed Reuben where I should have been. My shape, my height, my position, but Reuben's face, Reuben's uniform, Reuben's pressed hand. The glass had taken my reflection and given it to him. I pressed the top edge of the blackout sheet against the steel frame above the pane and clamped it with the first spring clamp, biting it down hard on the structural lip. The sheet dropped over the upper half of the window. The copy's head disappeared behind the opaque material. I pulled the second clamp from my belt and secured the opposite top corner to the frame edge, then crouched and dragged the sheet taut down toward the sill. The radio crackled. "My hand is dropping," Reuben said. It's coming down. I can feel it again." I clamped the third spring clamp at the midpoint of the frame and pressed the bottom edge flat against the sill. The fourth clamp bit into the lower corner. I tore off long strips of the foil-backed utility tape and ran them along every seam where the sheet met the steel frame, top, sides, bottom, pressing them tight, sealing the gaps, making sure no light from the room could reach the glass surface from inside. The sheet covered the pane completely. No glass was exposed. The room felt different immediately. Not warmer, not safer, just smaller. The emergency fixtures lit the conference table, the chairs, the credenza, and 6 fully covered windows. No reflections, no copies, no Reuben in the glass. Reuben, status. "I'm okay," hands back, twitching stopped. "I feel like myself again." That sounds like a strange thing to say, but I don't know how else to describe it. Priya checked the exterior feeds. A pause, then her voice careful and steady. "All copies are gone, every floor. The east facade is clean, just windows." I stood in the dark conference room with the blackout sheet clamped and taped over the jammed pane and the emergency lights humming above me, and I breathed. Just breathed. The building was quiet. The glass was covered. The man in the stairwell was himself again. I had left the control room. I had left the screens. I had walked into a room where the glass showed me someone else's face, and I had covered it with a sheet and 4 clamps and a roll of tape, and it was the most important thing I had done in 9 years of security work. Not because it was complicated, because it required me to be in the room. Priya met me on the ground floor as the shift wound down. We'd spent the remaining hours monitoring every exterior camera, and no copies reappeared. Reuben came down from the stairwell at 5:30 and sat in the lobby for a while, drinking water and not saying much. When he finally stood up and walked past the lobby's interior glass partition, his reflection was perfect. Instantaneous. His. No delay, no substitution. We filed the overnight report as a camera system, anomaly requiring facilities follow-up. That wasn't a lie. Something had happened to the way the building's glass interacted with interior lighting, and it needed to be addressed. The follow-up would be practical. Priya began requisitioning opaque roller blinds for every east-facing window in the vertical stack Reuben had inspected. The jammed blind in room 1108 was scheduled for replacement. The conference room would be moved to a west-facing suite. And we drafted a simple internal guideline. Any unexplained repeated human image in exterior security, Footage triggers an immediate floor blackout on the affected panes and removal of all personnel from reflective areas until the image clears. We didn't explain the mechanism. We described the response. Before any of those repairs were made, Ruben and I stood outside the building at sunrise that same morning. The opaque sheet was still clamped over the conference room window from inside. From the street, that pane should have reflected nothing but the brightening sky and the buildings across from it. The sunrise gave the building back its windows. Every pane reflected the street, the sky, and the offices behind it. Every pane except one. 11 floors above us, Ruben was still standing in the glass. The man beside me never raised his hand. The reflection did.